A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mongo Champagi. And tonight we'll be discussing, are government fears of violence justified? What is the justification? And to answer those questions, of course, I have my colleagues. Let me start with Angelo Izama. Angelo, very nice to have you.
Thank you for having me, Charles.
We have Onapito Ekomolite, Corporate Affairs Director, Nairobi SAB Mela.
Looks like you are suggesting me and Izam also will answer the question.
You are
stakeholders.
And of course, Colonel Shaban Bantariza, he's the Deputy Executive Director of the Uganda Government Media Center. Colonel, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Let me start actually with you by congratulating you. Last week you celebrated 30 years of the National Resistance Movement, and just yesterday you celebrated 35 years of the Uganda People's Defense Forces, formerly the National Resistance Army.
And thank you for congratulating us, but I'd rather you say, let me congratulate ourselves, because it's not us alone, okay? It's us all.
That's a debate we keep having.
Okay.
Where do the rest of us come in, and where do the you extend to the rest of us?
26th January was the Liberation Day. We can't have moved from wherever we moved from to go and liberate ourselves as individuals, come here, remain individuals, okay, without our relatives, our friends, our compatriots. Okay, and then we didn't even do it ourselves alone without you, who may not have taken up arms. Well, a liberation struggle is not simply a rifle, it is very many things.
Well, Shaban, I agree with you, but I think the challenge for the NRM is this is not the first Liberation Day which has been declared. There was another famous April 11th. Which somehow has disappeared. So you hope that this one does not disappear.
We have said those are phases. But you see what is there, what is current now that we can all be proud about is that the 11th of April 1979 was watered down by what happened in 1979 itself. You have a president of Arole, 60 days you throw him out. You have got to Aisha, 12 months you throw him out. You have an election in 1980, then you overturn and you know that kind of thing. That's what puts a blur. Because if that had not happened, then this liberation I'm talking about of the 6th January perhaps would not have arisen. So that's what puts a blur on the other one. But now it is different. It was a liberation, no doubt about that.
Yes, you know, Angelo, what I saw towards the celebration of the 26th, that a lot of people were sharing on social media, this phenomenon of social media, especially WhatsApp, that please go and celebrate 26th because this is the last time you're going to celebrate 26th.
Which is also good, because people should be, that's exactly what we are celebrating. But people can now say, you are going to celebrate for the last time. Well, no, of course it's not true, but they have the freedom, audacity to say that, and go home and sleep and drink tea, like I'm drinking tea here. Yes?
Okay, gentlemen, we have to discuss the basis of the fears of government, especially that there will be violence after the 18th election, the 18th of this month election. Today we saw President Yoweri Museveni release or launch the new edition of Sowing the Mustard Seed, and he says, this one I wrote myself, the other one I dictated and they recorded and transcribed and wrote. So he was not happy with part of the work that was done by my friend Elizabeth Kanyogonya and the guy from a lady from Macmillan. I said, well, how do you put a comma after and or and after comma and stuff like that? Looking forward to reading that book.
Well, it's long. The update, I think, is long overdue. And I've in my possession another book written, still unpublished, by one of his close comrades. And so I think the entire picture is coming together slowly as more people write. And Shaban, when you write your book, we'll also be looking forward to reading it. The thing I find that's unresolved, of course, is, and I keep saying this, for Uganda the real political transition is really a transition from the military to a purely civilian government, where the state is run by civilians and there's a competitive elections among civilians. Part of this Liberation Day celebrations just reminds us that what happened in '86 was actually a military takeover, and the military has been part of our politics, and there has not really been a clear transition. Actually, I was telling friends over coffee that, look, in ordinary circumstances, if we were not to talk about the fiction that Uganda is a real democracy or hybrid democracy, what you really have is a mutiny, because all the front runners are military men who are running against their boss. But this is really part of our history. I don't think it will be resolved by elections alone, but I think people should be honest about the kind of situation that we are in, and maybe think about moving forward just beyond elections. And actually, that's a challenge I think most people I've spoken to really want out of February 18th for the parties to commit to respecting the results and allow some sort of civility to prevail, so that, you know, our investment anyway in competitive electoral processes moves forward.
Okay, Shaban, let me come to you quickly.
I really wanted to ask whether we shall read the book. Certainly. You can't miss reading the book. But look, one thing you must give President Museveni credit for, hate or love him, is his photographic memory in terms of ability to relate events of the past and the passion with which he writes about them. You know,
You said today
it's quite powerful. Oh, of course, for the second edition, some people may say, if you are talking of a photo, maybe the photo will be photoshopped. You know? Maybe tempted to fit in some of the.
There was talk of another version of Saying the Mustard Seed that came out, which had made some editing of some contributions to certain people. I remember one particular person, I think Augustine Ruzindana, in the original Sowing the Mustard Seed, his role is clearly spelled out. And then the second one, some edition that was not as big as this edition that has just been launched today, was talking about his reduced presence in that book. But that's not the issue we're discussing tonight. Let me start. The media center issued a statement this last week, this just ended week, and was talking about threats of violence and what was being planned. On what basis did you issue that statement? I know Fono Pondo gave it, the director, and he gave a press conference about it.
Yes.
But it's been all this talk from all different quarters, from the army, the chief of defense forces, from the police, the inspector general of police. What is the basis of these claims?
First of all, for the claims, the most important is an interest. And the interest is we should go into this election peacefully, vote peacefully, return home peacefully, and transit into a new government peacefully. Because if you're going to vote for whoever I want, it's no cause for me to break your neck. We have 8 presidential candidates. They are all suitors. They are trying to woo us. Now we shall all make decisions. They have their manifestos. So we who are being courted by the presidential candidates, we will be here as we were before they came onto the scene, and we need to continue because that's what we are as Uganda. So that is the main interest. But then, as we are trying to pursue and maintain that interest, okay, the interest is based on peace, security, and stability of person and property. Then we realize there are some temperatures rising, which are normal to politicking, of course. Campaign time I have defined the campaign time myself as irrational. People say things you didn't expect them to say. So, this is the person saying this. How can he say that? Now, it started earlier when one presidential candidate, to be specific, said this is going to be a campaign of defiance, right? Now, defiance, when you translate it ordinarily, it means to rebel against, okay? Kugoma in Kiswahili, Mugomo. Now, when you do that and you say that, you're going to rebel against what? You're going to defy what? Okay, now it's not defined, it's not explained. Ordinary people will interpret their own way. And we say, no, you may be misunderstood. Okay? But that's based also on the fact that we have a history where in 2011 we had an election, and after elections we had violence really. Okay? Now that violence could now antecede the election. That time it was post the election, but this time it could be before the election and during the election. Now we have also had people, intelligence, in our security analysis, who have been enlisting names of other people. They come, take your national identity card, photocopy it, put your contact, keep you on standby. They are in hundreds, those people. Okay? One center is Machingi. One center is Chibuli. I was in Aruba the other day.
I thought that aspect of the recruitment has been explained. Every camp hold it a moment. Every camp is trying to protect its vote, is trying to recruit and deploy mobilizers.
That's different.
What's different?
That's what the one you're talking about is like FDC. They have been saying that the presidential candidate for FDC has been having what he calls P10, okay,
or
power 10, whatever P represents. Now that's known. Where we are engaging him on that one differently, but these are different people being enlisted, put on standby, and they are being told that they won't be taken to the president. The president is not even aware, right? So it's not that.
So who is recruiting them?
Absolutely, that's the question.
Who is recruiting them?
Now we know who is recruiting them.
Can you tell us?
No, I can't.
We have an interest.
Of course you do. But your primary interest.
Come up and tell us you're no longer in the military.
Of course, yes.
I mean, you are in government. And you are at the Uganda Government Media Center.
Yes.
Whose job is to coordinate and disseminate information to Uganda.
True.
So tell us.
In information dissemination, there is must know and should know.
Or need to know.
Okay?
Or
need to know. Now, time comes, must be timely. Information must be timely. Now, for me to tell you that so recruiting, when we are still gathering more information about why he's doing that, or why she's doing that, what if it turns out that actually he or she wants to take these recruits to Saudi Arabia for family employment? But when
you refuse to answer that, there is a concern that what you're simply trying to do, you, now the media center, the Secretary General of the NRM, the IGP, the CDF, his words were re-echoed by the President the other day, is you're simply trying to scaremonger.
We can only scare those who have ill will. Only those ones. They say usually, if you do not suspect yourself criminal, you cannot be afraid of a policeman or a police station. So for those who feel intimidated, it can be those who have ill will, ill motive.
And what is the problem with you coming out clean? We're going into almost a civil election. It's not wartime.
Yes.
It's not a wartime election.
Yes.
We're going into an election. It's not like when you were recruiting for RSC's Resistance Council in the early late 1980s, 1987, 1988, 89, maybe through to a bit of the 1990s. You're going into an election on peacetime.
What you're asking for, what you're asking for is the information that is still classified. Let me make it very clear. Okay, but I can give you a bit of show the reason why these statements are coming out of the CDF, coming out of the IGP, coming out of the media center, coming out of government, for two purposes. One, to assure the citizens that whatever happen, whatever those who want to cause trouble may intend to do, one, we know, and we have the means and the will to ensure that freedom, lovers of peace and freedom will enjoy it. Then also to send a signal to those who want to cause trouble, who want to even intimidate others, that they will not be able, they will not be allowed, they will not find the atmosphere to be able to exercise what is illegitimate and
people
wrong.
have interpreted the words of one of the presidential candidates who has said, I cannot hand over power to these people. I will not hand over power. To the words of defiance against the Constitution of Uganda.
Then how you go to the election in the ballot box if you not hand over?
But you haven't spoken about that candidate.
And I don't have
your statement avoided that candidate completely. You mentioned one candidate, you avoided that candidate.
Every candidate has said many things. As I told you, campaign time can be irrational. And you see, political campaign is a capitalism. It engages in cutthroat competition. And that cutthroat is real, so it doesn't matter. So people use all means or tactics, words, actions, okay, which could undermine their competitor in their advantage. So for me now to come and talk about a statement that a competitor may have made, but which is which is in that realm where I am not in the campaign A, because me I'm not campaigning.
No, but do you find it curious? Do you find it a cause of concern or justifiable concern that you issue a statement that a string of government agencies issue a statement, points to some of the candidates and avoid some candidates when every candidate is making statements that you called in an irrational time?
No, we have even communicated quietly some of the candidates, okay?
Including the candidate who was defied by saying, I want handover power.
You want me to be specific. And
but
for me,
you were specific in your statement.
Because you brought it up and it was clear.
No, I did not bring up the statement. You wrote the statement.
Yes.
The media center wrote the statement.
No, the statement was not about somebody.
It mentioned a particular candidate.
No, that for me, what I know and what I have been propagating, or even now I'm coming from up-country radio stations, my message has been, we are into an election. There are people who have ill will, and such ill-willed people exist everywhere in the world. We want this highly competitive election period, okay, to be peaceful. Because, you know, when like he has said earlier, that for him to see this as a mutiny, all these who are campaigning, General Beraro, Honorable Mobazi, and the SJ, they were subordinates to the commander-in-chief now, and now they are contesting against him. That's how he brought the perspective. Now, incidentally, when he brought that one, I realized something. People have been very curious, have been very the interest in this campaign time has superseded the interest before, has been realized. Now, when there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of motivation, now we as the government, which superintends the state, have to ensure that that enthusiasm does not get misused or is not misapplied to our peace, to our final intention of having a free, fair, peaceful election and a government that people will have elected. So the question of these individual candidates and what they say, it's part of the cutthroat competition and the can't comment on them.
Angelo, your take. We've been having the exchange between me and Bandel for the last 3 minutes. The question of the statement and how it is projected. The people who look at this and say, wait a minute, what happens if one of the other candidates who have been mentioned in the statement wins the election or emerges victor in the election? What would happen to their structures? And what is the threat of violence? What's the justification?
Well, I noticed there is propaganda on both sides, and like Shaban says, you know, it's getting, because this is the crunch time, it's getting more and more heated. And I was speaking to someone earlier about the resurgence of particularly Kiza Besigye. I think that there is a sense of anxiety about the final result. There are all kinds of people who are thinking this is going to be a close election. Like Shaban said, it's been a very competitive election. By and large, it is that interest of what may happen after the 18th that is, you know, leading to all of the angst. Personally, I think that, you know, the business of Uganda itself must continue. And if you put aside, let's not debate the propaganda, if you ask really what the responsibility of the candidates and their supporters, it is really to respect the outcome of the election, particularly the poll, if it is conducted in such a way that it is transparent. I think that's really what the conversation ought to be about. Now, because Uganda has a history of electoral malpractice, history of violence, and I think all of these things are particularly for the opposition, they have a bearing on the mistrust they have for state institutions, and some of them have expressed, including particularly Colonel Besigye, real misgivings about how that process will happen. I think that if you really have a transparent observation of that poll, that people go and vote, regardless of what that vote is, and that vote is and the outcome is honored, there's really no cause for anything further.
Your Honor, the cause for this.
I think you are mostly referring to statements from people like Shaban and a lot of state actors. I really feel for people like him. In my view, these are generally very decent Ugandans, highly intellectual. Most of them, you meet them and you really can have a conversation with them. But the candidates who are in this race versus most of the players in the state is a very complicated picture. You have the main candidate, President Museveni, to many of the people in the state, is a godfather. You know, he's a godfather in so many respects, and they really find it hard to be referees in this game. And then you have the other candidates like Kiza Besigye and Amama Mbabazi. They are sort of like their peers, and there is also an element of peer rivalry who you see be challenging the boss. You know, so they find it very hard to extract themselves from that informal network which the NRM, NRA, PDF has been for so many decades. To stand aside as a professional and not really try to be mixed up in this is very hard. You know, I mean, we are all Ugandans, so we want to pretend that these are not Ugandans. These are in the bush, many of them they are with these three main players, and it becomes very dicey for you to be a professional. At the same time, you know who these people are.
Let's discuss that. In this talk of fear of violence, can the institutions of the state extract themselves from this political process? After a short commercial break. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and the question you're asking, are the fears of violence justified? What is the basis of these arguments? And to help us navigate through that is a very well-positioned person, 10 years spokesperson of the UPDF and Defense, Shaban Mantariza, now Deputy Executive Director of the Uganda Government Media Center, and of course with my colleagues. One has framed it very well for me, actually, in the analysis. Can you, as institutions of the state, extract yourself from playing what other people think is almost a partisan role in this election? And that is what people are using to say the way you have framed the threat of violence is actually warmongering.
We are not framing the threat of violence. We are only sharing with our citizenry, okay, the information available, the scenarios possible, and saying that those scenarios are humanly possible anywhere in the world, now in Uganda, and they are dangerous, they are detrimental, and we must avoid them at whatever cost. So when I mention, for example, people who are enlisting other people's names and going away, and I have mentioned at least 3 centers, Machinge, Chibuli, and Arua, where it was last week. I was told by ABC when it was sharing information with him, said, yes, they have done it here. What are they, and there are hundreds of people already, right? What are they doing that for? Now, when we would have a scenario where people were mobilized to walk to work where they had no work, and it was trouble, people lost property, people got injured, we can now not take anything for granted, especially in an election like this one, where enthusiasm, as I said, enthusiasm and competition has been very high. We must ensure that everybody plays according to the rule. Because if there was contest, everyone would expect that election has been declared, results have been declared, somebody has contested. The only honorable way to contest is to use the available channels of justice.
Here's the problem, Shaban, with the way the statements of caution to the public have been framed. They have been framed with what any lay person would interpret as a scenario building by state actors, including yourselves, that President Museveni will win the election. Someone else will feel they have been cheated in that election, and therefore they will resort to violence. There doesn't seem to be room that someone else can win the election, and then the state would have to align itself to that new reality. If that were to happen, have you thought about that? Violence come out in the statement?
Violence can arise from anywhere. It can arise from some actors of state. It can arise from supporters of individual candidates. We saw what happened in Zonga the other day between supporters of Mbabazi and the NRM supporters. I do not think the president dressed up some young people say go and interfere with Mbabazi's rally. I do not even want to think immediately until I get evidence to that Mbabazi armed those young people with the who's they went with, the sticks.
They said they disarmed the other people who had disappeared.
That's subsequently, yes, right? But you see, that you come from home with sticks may not have been a proposal by your supported candidate. So violence can emerge from any quarter by any group of people. Now, for us,
as a state actor,
yes,
as a state agency, how do you extract yourself from this politics? Honor, maybe if you should reframe the way you restate what you said, that you see yourselves as a godfather and camaraderie. Honor,
let me say it clearly.
Yes.
I have been moving around the country. I've told you. Ask any radio station, okay? Whether it is Spice FM, whether it is Arua 1, whether it is Mega FM, whether I have campaigned for any candidate. I haven't. Because our job, right, is to deal with the matters that affect the responsibility of government and the government's intervention in this election. Not individuals of government, individuals of the state coming out in direct support and campaign for any specific candidate. That we are not doing it. And anybody who does that can only do it as an offense. Right? We have the capacity to campaign for our candidates. We have our candidates, like we do. Okay? But that one must recede in this atmosphere where we have a candidate, we have a contest, we have candidates. So we as members of the government, because now I think I'm more in government than the state. I was in the state before I retired from the army. Okay? Because the government is the superintendent of the state. Now, we must, both in the government and in the state, ensure that this election, this campaign, to have a level ground which people always clamor for justifiably, can only be offered if we did extract ourselves, which we have. I don't think we have. Absolutely. Who have you seen campaigning? General Katumba has been there, IGP has been there, we are all there. We are not coming out and saying, gentlemen, we mobilize, let's have a meeting, support this one against the other one. We haven't done that. We can only whisper that on the Tea Party. I have a right as an individual over a tea party, over a banquet, in a wedding, but only really. Don't you vote for my candidate? I have that right. Yes. But I have no right. Yes, but I have no right.
And we're picking up all this.
There's a platform. There's a platform.
We're picking up all this.
Campaign is a platform.
Deploying teams, going quietly in the night, mobilizing these people, and nobody knows whether they're actually the people who are helping these young people to carry the sticks and to dress them and say, you go and appear and stand.
Mention them. Many have mentioned them. You need to say, so and so, we have information that he armed so and so, or sent 20 police coordinates.
I received information.
Police coordinates.
I received information.
Military coordinates.
Still subject to verification. That in Maga, just outside here, in your road.
Yes.
In a sub-count, I remember the name of the sub-count. I'll check when we take a break and I can access my phone. Men in uniform from the barracks near there were moving around villages, knocking on people's doors, giving them money and telling them to vote for.
Subject to verification, you said it.
Yes, subject to verification.
Absolutely. And until you have verified that one, you can't discuss on public.
And that means the whispers are going beyond the whispers.
No, you see, what is important is, why do you think Electoral Commission has organized campaigns, put timetable, and put time limits? There is a platform, in other words. It is that platform that I cannot be part of.
So it's an admission that you are not neutral players.
It's a state neutral players.
Yes.
Let's be philosophically clear. There is nobody in the world that is politically neutral. Nobody. Let's not be fake and pretend. I am not neutral. And I'm not forbidden from being pro so and so or pro this candidate. What I'm forbidden from, both by law and practice, is to get on that platform. Okay? And say, hey, Aveka Takumbaramusiza, I greet you. Give this candidate your vote. I don't know. Because that's a platform.
But you can go at night quietly at Katakwe.
I have, as an individual, okay, of course, yeah, you have also to have right judgment. Because when I go to Katakwe at night, what will the people of Katakwe see me as? They may, if I find that they are going to see me as a spokesman of government taking a campaign message, I will resist from it. But when I was on Arua 1 with the RDC, Peter Debele, okay, and Swaibu Toko, discussing the importance of security and telling the people in Arua that, look, before the resurgence of fighting in Southern Sudan, there were between 200 and 500 trucks every day going to Juba and were doing business. But look here, they were having 21 buses every day from Kampala to Juba, taking 1,630 people to do business. Then they realized that yes, peace, security and tranquility is important for their survival with or without an election. Right? Now, to that effect, am I campaigning for somebody who may even have those similar views in his manifesto or not? That's what I'm telling you. Yes, possible.
I think Ugandans, in a classic case of once bitten, twice shy. Our people are very careful about the potential danger of political instability, because a lot of people live through it. I know there are young people who might not have experience, but I think where the armed forces is generally perhaps overreaching, if they want to, they want to talk too much about it, that they can't be instability. I think they should just prepare and then deal with the situation when it comes. I know the army is very professional, the police is getting beefed up, but when you talk so much, then of course people now accuse you, unfairly perhaps, that you are trying to scare them from voting for your position. I think the armed forces can actually prepare, can have enough intelligence, can anticipate, without necessarily having to say, guys, be careful, because if you just blast the lines now, whether you are trying to prepare or you are actually trying to scare.
You see, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. If we are scaring the people, what subsequent actions do we take after we have made statements that show that we are actually scaring people? Because if we are going out and rounding up people and threatening others, then we say, nah, you are only building the scenario to justify what you want to do. Yes, but we are getting here on television, we are getting at the media center, we are getting in a public forum and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we have had peace uninterrupted, no coup, okay, no attempted coup for the last 30 years. And the benefits of that are visible, they are tangible, you can breathe them. We want to reverse that, right? Now, this army of yours, which is a product of the people's struggle, tends most of the time to share, impeding in the region is the force that declassifies its information regularly, very often. After people fear when we say too much, as he's saying. But the reason is because for us and the people, we believe we have a common vision and a common mission, something that we cannot simply keep them out of everything. So when we give out some tips, it is to be preventive. And prevention is different. Why do we have to wait? Why do we have to wait until the situation is so bad, then we come in? If we can prevent, by what we call in the military, psychological operations.
So you're playing psychological operations on Ugandans by telling them there will be violence, when actually they know violence is not as it's supposed to be.
The 800 making it big. The 800 people have talked about. I have the copies of the registered IDs in my office. Are they not aware that they have been registered? Are we the ones telling them
registered and told to be violent?
Tell me, what are they doing?
I'm asking you. No, you have the IDs. You have the photocopies.
Yes.
So you tell us.
So for us, in security, when you do a threat analysis, somebody who has no right to enlist people, he's doing that clandestinely for no public purpose, no public motive that is known. You cannot take him for granted. So what we do...
Maybe a candidate is counting those as 800 votes.
By now, I'm not even saying they are candidates.
No. Whoever is recruiting them. That's maybe support has been whispering support for a particular candidate, and those are 800 voters.
Now, for us in the security, we don't deal with ifs and maybes like we are doing. Maybe, what if that may be not?
But that's exactly what you're doing.
So what we are doing,
the scare-mongering,
yes,
by the IGP, by the CDF, by Kasule Lumumba, by the President, by the media center, is what if?
Let's be clear. We have moved from November to January now, to February now. We have only 2 weeks to go for election peacefully because we have 11 days, because we have done what we have done. If we have not done that, probably. Even your infant may be, the scenario will be different.
No. Because you have told me the very scenarios you're trying to build for us by telling us, you see, we in the UPDF and the government and working with the people for the last so long, we've been doing this and we have achieved this.
Is that true?
You're trying to psychologically tell people, don't risk. If you do it this way, then we end up here.
Don't go into an unnecessary.
So you need to extract yourself and play a neutral role, a non-partisan role in this election.
Neutral and partisanship are not the same. I've told you we cannot be neutral, okay, where there's right and wrong. Neutrality doesn't exist. We must be with the right.
What is the right in this?
The right is everybody must go before, during, and after election peaceful.
And then you think the 800 identity cards that...
They're more than that.
No. The 800 you picked from Arua. If those people are not thinking about the decisions they make, now that they know you have the information in your possession, in terms of how they vote on 18th February?
In 2001, 2003, 2003, some people took decisions, okay, to engage in an armed rebellion against Uganda, the Uganda government, okay? Do you think they were not others who have taken deliberate decisions? You are taking the deliberate decisions.
There is a whole debate about that.
No, they have been fought.
You never successfully prosecuted that case, and there was not a single shot fired anywhere. There was never a camp that you demonstrated that you had bust. You picked up people and arrested them. Yes. There is no evidence.
There is evidence of people asked for amnesty.
There is no evidence. There is no evidence.
When you look at the amnesty seekers,
there is no evidence that you found a camp and a location.
I did.
GPS location.
I did.
That camp.
I did in Yumbe. I went there with General Mujira in Yumbe. The camp that was under Captain Katabazi, a veteran of UPDF. We brought 12 guns from his house, where we dug them from. So the evidence is there. Now, if you want to, since you are not in Yumbe and you are not in Arua, where many were handed,
I saw the handover. I saw the handover.
In Arua, those who are brought by Metrechiza after few had been eaten across. Okay, now those who you can have this about. They sought amnesty at the court martial, but you can get out of there. The point we are making here is
gentlemen or two people who were patients in Malago Hospital. I was smuggled in as a relative, and they told me how they had been taken and been made promises, and those promises were never met.
Absolutely.
That's a different
Absolutely.
Who made the promises? Who made the promises and who never kept their part of the bargain?
For us, the issue is that they were insecurity agents, which we must avoid a repeat of, because whether you are adult or young, whether you are a Ugandan or even an ally, we need peace and tranquility to do our business freely and prosper.
Angela.
So this is a country of almost 40 million people, and we live in a very complex world now. I actually feel for a lot of Ugandans who are, their lives are just beginning. The bulk of them are under the age of 25. For them, the journey of building stronger institutions, what he's talking about as regulators in the state, must be real for them to achieve their dreams. Now, me who is not even a voter in this election, and I don't have no candidate, my interests may be, yeah, it's true. Well, I choose not to participate in the fiction that we're having, but that's a different story entirely. So I have no candidate. I'm not a registered voter. I'm a citizen. And in fact, the majority of us, and I'm talking about the larger majority, people who are not going to vote, are being represented by the 15 million or so prospective voters.
15.2 million according to the Electoral Commission.
Exactly. We expect that their decisions, eventually, because they represent the bulk of our hopes and dreams, must be respected, and that state institutions are capable of constraining those who might be interested in doing funny things. Because let's be honest, for Uganda, by the way, is a very violent...
Would you add also that the state institutions are also capable of restraining themselves from playing a role that might be perceived?
Actually, I'm encouraged in this election because I think, by and large, it's been one of the more peaceful elections and one of the more competitive elections, apart from, I think, two incidents It's largely the candidates have canvassed the entire country. There's very genuine interest in the election. I'm not sure about eventual voter turnout because of all this talk about violence and stuff. But you also have a Ugandan democracy which is not really represented by the presidential candidates, because candidates are a minority. They cast a long shadow over the election, but Parliament alone and the institutions below it, that is the real that's the real majority. And people are really invested in their local MP. They're invested in the LC5 elections. They're invested in life in their community. Now, I postulate that is the real majority. Now, what happens on the 18th is that those who are voting and the candidates themselves should not hold the rest of us hostage, because in fact the majority are just interested in waking up in the morning and going to pursue whatever dreams that the country has offered them. That is really for me.
And there lies the magic of why, if there is to be any violence, it won't be protracted, because I think most of the Ugandans are still living hand to mouth, and they don't have the luxury of extending any dispute. They want to return to make money and survive. So I think the fear of violence, to me, there may be skirmishes, because certainly there will be discontent about the outcome of this election either way. So somehow there may be skirmishes.
But that should be, that's only natural that some people will feel. No matter what, Donald Trump has been complaining that Ted Cruz stole the election in Iowa. Rigged the election in Iowa. And yesterday, Ted Cruz was apologizing to Ben Carson because his campaign issued some messages indicating that Ben Carson was withdrawing from the race when he wasn't, and that might have impacted how he performed in that election. So it's
the honest truth for everyone must understand is that human beings are tamed by institutions. Particularly politics, to me, is a very unethical struggle by mostly greedy elites to maintain their privileges. There are very few moments in history when an elite class decides that we want to actually change the way the majority work. And that's why there are ideological movements that define that.
Which places a higher responsibility on institutions of government?
Actually, I think it places a higher responsibility.
You've been trying to build institutions.
Charles, it places a bigger responsibility on individuals, because individuals must look beyond the state, must think of themselves as their neighbor. And these are things that states can give you. States actually are very capricious. They tax unfairly. They send your kids to wars you don't need to fight. They spend your money in ways that you otherwise wouldn't have decided. And so the states, in a sense, must be regulated. In fact, states are constantly...
States are government, because we're trying to draw the line.
It doesn't really matter. The politics of any country only grows, matures by the activity of their citizens. And I think that people are aware, and especially here in Uganda, that elites, by their very nature, are interested in protecting their privileges. These very same elites should not hold the rest of us hostage. That's why the process of this election is really a matter of individuals eventually deciding that, look, if the talent is right, we have done a peaceful election, the institutions have restrained themselves, let's respect the result and move on. But the instability, Charles, is a very old way of doing progress. And it holds
Charles, I just wanted to chip in, why do you find a lot of state actors under duress?
Can you pick it up from there after
because of their privilege?
No, pick it up from there after short commercial. We'll drive back. Welcome to this last segment of the Fourth Estate, and the number will be running on your screen in a few minutes, so you can call in and share your views and opinions on this, the justification of the threat of violence, especially from state actors. Ona, you just wanted to chip in before you took the break.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of the election time like we are now is it's a hunting expedition for many actors. and you see, you must prove yourself in terms of sharing the animal at the end of the day. Again, please appreciate someone who is an RDC or something. Before I've seen what it takes to become an RDC. This is the time to be counted. So sometimes people are trying to outdo themselves. Because when ultimately, you have to prove yourself. And it's quite a big challenge if you are state actor. So I understand when people make statements which may appear irrational.
The number is on the screen, so you can call in and share your views and opinions on the topic we're discussing and about the election generally. Canavan Teresa, let me come back to you. There's been a lot of what I think unfortunate information circulating on social media, especially deliberate confusion of voters on voting days. People are talking about presidential candidates being voted for in a series of days, not one day. You help coordinate government information, and from the Electoral Commission, if you could speak, the preparation and the guarantees that this election will be conducted well and peacefully on 18th February, and then the subsequent elections that will come after that.
Well, I think first of all, social media. I have trouble with social media. Social media sometimes, when I'm looking through it, those who are on doing whatever they post on, I don't know how to call it information, because information is gathered data, analyzed, and ready for consumption. Information is useful, but what is the social media is many times not information. You see, it's a very surprising thing. Now, for us, we cannot encourage people to use, for example, social media, okay, to get what is going on in the government or even in the public. Some things come out, they are correct. I like social media for being very fast. You get something there very fast, even when it's wrong or negative. At least you have got it, and you can verify it, you can authenticate it. But for government, we are using conventional means. That's why you have seen the Electoral Commission bring in these IT gadgets and say, here, actually I'm coming from home to pick my voter slip, and that voter slip is a very, very useful thing. It tells you who you are, with your details, and where you are going to vote from. Now the machine they have brought tells you that your polling station is this and not the other one. And when you have voted on that one, you need to go and vote on another polling station. So to me that reduces.
That's the biometric verification.
Yeah, the biometric verification system. Now that reduces the previously available space for speculation and even commission of wrong.
Yes, and I think I need to thank my friend Jeffan Parema. He's been communicating and saying, yes, there's been all this confusion. What am I going to use to vote? Is it my national ID? Is it my that voting slip?
Yes.
What is that? But he has said that if your name appears on the register,
You will vote.
you will vote.
Yes.
Which I think is very important. Let's take a call on the line. Hello? 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 Yes. Tell us your name and where you're calling from, and keep your question or comment brief. Come again? Yes, please. Go ahead with your question or comment. Keep it brief.
Yes, my comment is about the virus, which is very now, what I comment to is about the security. In my case, we find that the security of the Indian would be the first security to stop the virus against those presidential candidates. As what I see at home, the more candidates who may be talking in a very is the one who is going to be one. Because he is the army chief of command. He is the one supposed to vote the IPH members to stop the virus. He is the one going to how will the engineer stop that virus.
Thank you. I think Shaban is in a position to answer your question. Thank you very much. You had the question, I hope. Okay. Can we have another call on the line? Hello? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you tell us your name and where you're calling from, and keep your question or comment brief?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Just the first call.
Your name is?
I'm calling you.
Yes, please. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Barada.
From Barara, okay. Keep your question or comment brief.
Yes, please. What I just say is the announcement from the media.
Colonel Shaban Bantariza from the Media Center.
Yes, please.
Yes.
I think if you give us the clear information that we as the voters are supposed to rely on, So when we come here and we also begin to confuse people in order in other words, it's supposed to be helping us with more details. He's trying to deal with some things is also very violent. You know, so the way he's supposed to be raising his tone, at least we should understand in a very calm way. However, it's what that as a child, also, every country that there, that it does the whole order of the house. The reporters are there to see who has done or who has not done. So please what I want us to say is that it will be very eloquent enough and speak the truth.
Thank you. I think he responds to you. When we pick another caller.
Shaban, your way of speaking is very aggressive. People are scared just by listening to you. You have a violent demeanor.
Oh, Shaban is a very...
You might be humble. Let's pick another caller line. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Your name and where you're calling from? Keep your question or comment brief. Hello?
This is George from Namongo.
Yes, George.
To answer your question, what are the violence? Do something just right. I think it all comes from what we have met and from the government seems to be determined to go to whatever cost, even if we people proportion to be so much determined that they are not ready to just let go. They are stand ready to defend. The only way out, I believe, is if for the first time the state and all, even those the person have said, do without speaking, so that the election can be peaceful.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have another caller? Well, I think we'll take two more and then yes, come back to the studio. Do you have another caller in line? Hello?
Yes, hello, good morning.
Yes, good evening. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. Keep your question or comment brief.
They're calling from Honor.
Yes.
I was wondering, I wanted to ask Mr. Duman from the media. What is that?
Yes, go ahead.
If you give us a highlight about it, who are eligible to those people who are related in 2011 and they need to participate the registers. I think the other registers or who came to office, their name is recent registration. How about that?
I think Shaban is shaking his head. I think he's not hearing you well.
Let me go to the question.
Yes, the question is not clear. Can you keep it simple and straight?
Okay, who is eligible for it?
Who's what?
Eligible for the other people who are registered, either in 7 or those who have come back and update their register, their name.
I don't know if we get that question well.
Who is eligible to vote?
Who is eligible? Okay, we will be able to answer you on that question. Let's pick one last caller. Hello?
Hello, good evening, morning, Charles.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm very fine. My greeting to all the crew in the studio, including Kano Shaban and Tariqa,
Shukran.
the gentleman from the media center now. Having worked with the National Resistance Movement, and having been part of it for the last 10 years, NRM have always been perpetrating violence in the elections. And the whole situation as of now lies with the NRM. Charles and the rest of the team in the studio, look at the statements. Can say that quite presenters, you have been having mistakes, but now get for the war, we are going to give you guns. Then, Kasura Gumba says, go to the village and start narrating. Women or parents in this village don't support your children to be brought to Kampala. We shall shoot them should they try to demonstrate. Statements like those. Then the president comes over and says, I'm not ready to hand over power to the opposition. Then if he's not ready, why are we going into the election? Charles, I've been part of the NRM. The mobilization, the communications, actually I've been a senior coordinator. But all the election violence we've been experiencing in the past have always been perpetrated by the NRM itself.
You sound like someone who has since parted ways.
Yes, I started went to the NRM. Now I'm right now into the FDC. And I made my point clear to the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Secretary General, Madam Justin Lumumba, that I'm no longer in the NRM for such and such a reason.
Okay.
And I started work with the NRM.
But if you could actually help us, it seems your party that is mobilizing people and recruiting people under Power 10, and apparently some of them are being told that their mission is to defy the election.
No. The mission of Power 10 with the FDC is to defy the wrong results of the election.
How do you know you won't have wrong results even before you cast the ballot?
Now, Charles, let me tell you, there are some things which I cannot speak, having been in the NRM, but I know that Dr. Mr. now has the massive support.
We'll not give you the opportunity to campaign for him if you insist the word gives you the opportunity. But your question, your comment has been well taken. Shaban will respond to it.
That's what I'm doing.
Yes, thank you.
I remain Nyombe Richard.
Yes, Nyombe, thank you very much. Okay. Colonel Shaban, you listen to the callers.
Yeah, they are all my
the studio is telling me there are so many people trying to get through. Unfortunately, we can't take all of them because we have limited time. Could you respond?
I will start with the last one. This gentleman who says he has gone parted ways with NRM and gone to Nyombe and has gone to FDC, that's his perfect choice. Not all about that. But to say that the violence he has known has been perpetrated by NRM, I will ask him who started, who engineered the walk-to-work violence of 2011, which was an imitation of the Arab Spring in Tahrir Square. Was that NRM? Or on the contrary, it was actually NRM government that put it to stop. Now, this one, the first one here, I was saying that the commander-in-chief, who is the contestant in this election, he is going to cause violence. How will you deal with it? This commander-in-chief, fortunately, will have a record where he has been struggling more than half of his life, 3/4 of his life, okay, for peace and tranquility. And right now, he's one of the people who are most happy that he has been an important contributor the 30 years of tranquil. Now, for him to shoot him, to cause trouble at this time against himself, it would fit the understanding.
Well, there are some people who have argued and said that for as long as he was not in charge, he was causing trouble. The moment he took charge, there was no one else who could cause. You could not cause no trouble. That's right. And that, I think what the gentleman was saying, that should that status quo be threatened, then he can cause trouble. Yes,
that's not true, because when we had the 66 crisis, he was not in charge. When we had a state of emergency in Uganda for 67-71, he was not the cause. When we had a coup 71-79, he was not the cause.
No, he was on the other side.
But the point I'm making here is the turbulence that has taken place, because they want to portray him as the cause of violence and turbulence. Those 24 years of turbulence, okay, if you compare them with the 30 years of tranquility, which are his, okay, we would rather have him.
But at every election,
yes.
So the whisper has gone to national.
Well, listen. What I'm saying here is, we are doing a comparative analysis of individuals. Okay, those who have caused trouble and those who have caused tranquility.
But I think what the gentleman was saying,
is,
if the president has said,
and I'm saying he will know
that if in 1996 I had lost the scare-mongering, I would have gone back to the bush. Now, then he says, I will not hand over power to these opposition.
Now,
I will not. Those are statements of defiance, aren't they?
Listen, any text without a context is a pretext. What was the context of saying that if Scare-mongering had won, I'll go back to Bush? What was the context? And what Bush was he talking about? Because for sure I know now, he is not going to end the Bush at all. The one of 81, 85. That one is out of question. You can't go to the Bush alone. You have to go and mobilize the people. Who is he going to mobilize now to go and repeat the 81, 86? Apart from the fact that he has sacrificed too much, he has nothing left. He doesn't have any more sacrifice again as much as he had then in this period. He has everything to lose by returning to violence. And so we who have been with him, who have been privileged to make a contribution to the peace and tranquility we are enjoying, all of us as Ugandans, even if it was anybody, we would go and whisper and say, what is the cost-benefit ratio. And the cost-benefit ratio is we go to the polls regularly, the people of Uganda decide that you are the one, or you are the cow still with the milk, give us more. There is no money in you, go home and rest. Right? So there is no violence, I can assure about that one.
And at an institutional level, you're ready to do that?
We have been prepared for a long time. Okay? That's why the FX was here the other day, CPC of the Army, telling you, when they were collecting views for the constitution to draft, UPDF had only one statement, one sentence. We shall abide by what the people will decide. You think we have no alternative views? You think we don't have a multiplicity of views to put in the constitution? We had as individuals. But as an institution, we said we shall abide by.
You're thinking might have evolved over the years. The constitution is
we would have done something about it. We have the news
about the constitution 1989. That's a long time ago.
UPDF, yes, UPDF.
And then you're still NRA, by the way.
UPDF has the means, okay, and the capacity to do something right or wrong, okay, but we do not have the ideological will and preparedness to do wrong, to reverse our own benefits that were brought and contributed to Uganda. So the point will not cause violence.
Do you know a gentleman called David Sejusa?
Yes.
He was previously appointed in Nyafuzo.
If you are talking about general,
he was previously appointed in Nyafuzo. So some people might have forgotten.
He still is.
Yes.
He still is.
He's been saying things. Now actually, he's incarcerated because he said certain things.
Simply because he's not the institution. The institution is above any one of us individually. General Katumba is our chief. Alright? UPDF is greater than him. And therefore, when I talk about institutional obligation, institutional preparedness to ensure that we ensure Uganda against violence and ensure there is peace and tranquility.
But in other people talking about this, Angela put it right. Four front runners, I think even Honor talked about it.
Yes.
The people talking about you as institutions doing what ideologically you're saying you're not tuned to do. Colonel Kiza Besigye.
Yes.
Brigadier Benan Veraro.
No, Major
General Benan Veraro.
Yes.
An honorary Brigadier John Patrick Amama Mbabazi,
yes,
if I remember well.
Yes.
And General David Sejusa. And a few others. And now the rest of us who do not have those ranks and seats are wondering and saying, who is telling us the truth between these two groups of people? Is the threat justified as we're asking tonight? Is that threat of violence justified, or is it?
The threat of violence, for us we are communicating to the people and saying, there are people who are threatening violence, there are people who are drumming the drums of war, right? Ignore them, because they won't take us anywhere. That's our message.
And that includes a certain
any individual.
That includes a certain General Kale Kaihura.
Who said General Kale Kaihura is a promoter of peace and tranquility by profession and responsibility.
Thank you. Now, can you just answer the last part, right? The last two callers.
Now, for this one, and I have answered now question number 3 about the message we are putting out is disengage. We are not saying anything. We are not saying that we are not have trouble, we are going to die. We are saying, please, we are aware there are warmongers. We are aware there are people who are ill-willed. Please disengage. Anybody who wants blood, I've been saying, just joking somewhere. Anyone who wants blood, pick a knife, split yourself, and see your own blood. Don't mobilize anybody's son or daughter. So we are saying simply, citizens disengage. Vote, go home, cook, eat, go about your business, and prosper. And that's our message. There is not any message deviates from that can only be a personal slip of the tongue by whoever you want to mention.
I like those slips of tongue.
Yes. Now, the first one, be eligible to vote. The eligibility has been sorted out here. You must be an adult, 18 years and above. You must be a citizen, and you must be registered. All right? If you have achieved those 3, you are an eligible voter.
Yes.
So if you go to the polling station, you are on the register, you will vote. If you want to be register, but you have the idea of being told, they can find out. But on the register is important. Yes, I don't want to speak for electoral commission and mistakes or make I don't know how they have said, but as long as you are an adult, you are a citizen, you are therefore you are a voter, and you are registered, you will vote. So we are eligible. And that's why they are saying 15.2 million who registered will vote.
Actually,
there's Angelo here. I told you he didn't register. Okay, he's an adult. He's a citizen, but he will not vote
because he's not on the
because he's not on the register.
I'm not on the
and he
register.
doesn't register. Yes, so eligibility depends on those things. You are a citizen, you are an adult, and you are registered.
Okay, and actually, Article 59 makes it both a right and an obligation.
Yes.
To register and vote.
But
both a right and an obligation.
We have a conscientization process to go through because you cannot vote by conscription.
Okay, and to just add a little bit more clarity, the election for president and members of parliament is on the 18th of February, and polling booths will close at 4 p.m., not 5 p.m. that we're used to. So people had better know that, and they should know that. It's unfortunate that Angelo is not a voter because I think everybody should go out and vote. That's my personal.
But he will not complain when he also go whichever way.
Yes, I will accept whatever comes up.
So you don't even have a national ID?
Not yet, I'm not registered.
I'm yet to pick.
I was actually
they told me that it's there somewhere in Kitugum. That's where
I got mine.
It's a continuous registration.
Yes.
So I register.
Let's have the last word from you, gentlemen, starting with you, Angelo, and then we'll come to On and end with Shaban. Our time is out.
No, I think that Ugandans have had a very interesting election, and it's a high-stakes election. But the sun will rise the next day, and the day after that, and people should just calm down, because your dreams and your future is not going to be just determined by a couple of days of what is going to be a regular contest. Elections are going to be part of our lives for many years to come.
Honor.
Yeah, I think really the whole fate of the country around the election period lies in the hands of the leading candidates. They have the power to tell their supporters either to protest the outcome or to accept it. But of course there's an indictment on the Electoral Commission that we are discussing these fears the way they are being discussed. I think if the Electoral Commission really does its job and people are ready to put their lives on the line to say we shall announce the winner, I don't think there will be violence, because there is going to be enough evidence of who the winner will have been even before the Electoral Commission announces. Yeah.
Shaban, your last word.
My last word is simple. Whatever we do, before, during, and this election, Uganda remains greater. And so that should be our perspective. That's what we should look at. Uganda remains greater, it's our home for all, and it's our responsibility to continue to make it a better home for all of us and each one of us.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much to all our viewers for joining us tonight. We will continue both on this show and subsequent programming on NTV. Multiplicity, so many programs, so many interviews. The other guys have been doing an amazing work trying to prepare Ugandans for that election, and also guaranteeing that we'll still be here. We'll continue to serve, and we will expect that it is a regular election. We go out, vote, come back, wait for the results. But most importantly, that we will individually honor our votes, but most importantly that vote will be respected by whichever institution is responsible for managing this process. The Electoral Commission, the UPDF, the Uganda Police, Media Center, and all the other actors.
Uganda government.
Yes, and the candidates, those who have higher stakes, will respect the choices that Ugandans make on the 18th of February. The other elections will take place much later, but presidential, parliamentary, 18th February. Have a good night, and thank you very much to the production crew, the guys who are staying out late to make sure that this show comes to you. Have a good night.